control of my mind. Nothing that I do is my responsibility now. No way to ignore the thing I just said. It wasn't true, and this is the real me talking. Look me in the eyeball. I like modern jazz. I like a place where the furniture's identically matched. I like it when all the interior surfaces are colored the same. Look me in the eyeball. This is really me now.
You know, that song speaks to me because, you know, They Might Be Giants, and I like They Might Be Giants anyway. But it's also called Eyeball, and a lot of my time and energy has been focused on my eyeballs lately. I had cataract surgery on one eyeball, and now I'm going to have a cataract surgery just in about a week or so on another eyeball. I don't know how many eyeballs total I have or how many of them are going to require surgery, but and now I'm in this kind of DMZ where like one eye is kind of fixed, but I still have to wear glasses for the sake of the other eye, and it's just, I'm a menace to society right now. I should not be allowed. I shouldn't be allowed in radio studios, let alone driving on America's highways. All right, it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. We got to get right down to business here, such as it is. You know the number, but if you don't, it's 888-720. Let's do this. 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. I'm covering up one of my eyes. EGB. Is it like an 8? Yes, LTQEP is the next line. All right. So here we go. We'll just start at the top. We got Lake Como Dave. You can't do better than that. You know, we're going to be with Lake Como Dave from beautiful Lake Como, Ohio, and then we will proceed onward from there. Lake Como Dave, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Colin. Actually, it's not so beautiful anymore. Lake Como's okay, but you know, it just was reported yesterday that Facebook, or I mean the parent company Meta, is now pushing to build various small nuclear plants in primarily central Ohio, but just to power their data farms. I just got to get out of here. It's so bad. That's all I'm calling about. But
hey, Homer Simpson's got to have a job. All right. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. Anyway, as you were, I was struck by the tremendous comments at Davos of the Canadian Premier Carney, and not only his speech, but the Q&A that came after it was, I mean, he was just brilliant during all that. Talk about prepared, and also Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president, she gave really, really rather forceful remarks, and both of them, it's just what is so missing in the U.S. now is honesty, directness and honesty. And it just feels like even with all of the other horrible things that have been going on for the last few years, with an interruption, but, 2 terms now in this country, over time, it may be that the most corrosive of those things coming from this White House is the lying and the gaslighting. That may be what takes us the longest to recover from, even if we somehow survive this period.
That or the ruination of our climate. I went to college with Ursula's sister Alice, and I do want to say about the Carney speech. Sort of in the first 12 to 24 hour window, it seemed like Macron was the one who was going to get the most ink, so to speak, and then he had the whole thing with the sunglasses. But if you listen to what Carney said, it's in addition to everything that you just said about it, it's a very scary speech. I mean, he's basically saying that the rule book is gone and there's no substitute rule book. The old order doesn't exist anymore and there's nothing to take its place. And what he's really saying is that, institutionally, ranging from the world reserve currency to, just the general maintenance of diplomatic and military norms, it was just kind of understood that you kind of lean on the U.S. for a lot of that stuff. And now it's, you were talking about how good a speech. I mean, the guy who got up for us repeatedly has confused Greenland and Iceland over the last 48 hours, you'd think he would at least know which one he was causing all the trouble about. You'd think, I understand he's a busy guy and I understand that he's losing his marbles, but you would think that that particular marble, since he's precipitated a crisis in the Western world, if not the entire globe over it, you think you'd know the name of the island. But yeah, I mean, I thought Carney's speech was really spooky. I mean, I think he's basically right, but I hadn't heard anybody say it that way.
And you can't, not only he, but the Europeans and elsewhere around the world, you can't blame people for wanting to pull back from the U.S. Just, suppose we get through this period, we get a terrific president, policies take a 180-degree change, and we're back and all. They're not convinced. I mean, I remember it was Macron or someone said to Biden, when he was making such an effort to pull everyone together behind Ukraine and so forth, one of the European leaders said to Biden, well, it's all fine now, but we don't know what's going to happen in the next election. And sure enough, this is where we're back. So, they can't trust us to not have our pendulum swing violently, or appear to swing violently back and forth. Actually, it's narrow margins of electoral victory, but, they just can't put their eggs in that basket. And truthfully, the media, for the most part, is not helping in this country. Instead of just reacting to, well, did you hear what Trump said today? And, and getting very shallow coverage of it with terrible follow-up questions. I mean, we're cutting loose of MS Now or Sling TV because we're paying $50 basically to have MS Now. And the reporting, the quality of most of the reporting now is so bad. We're just going to have to go to Euronews and other, CDC and other sources like that just to get a real picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I think one thing that we should maybe do as a show at some point, and thank you very much, Como Dave, is sort of come up with a couple of, or maybe 3 or 4 different news diets for a person. Because you do have to pay for stuff now, and, if you're going to give up on MS Now, which I actually think the rise of networks like that was not a good thing, even if MSNBC, as it used to be called, was playing an important role as kind of an alternative voice. I don't know. I've never been very impressed by sort of cable news anyway. But, I mean, you're going to need something. So let's say that you have $100 to spend every year or something like that. What could we get you? How could we put together some Substacks and some other stuff, that would make some sense? I think that might be an interesting show to do. I understand Dave's frustration with the news media. I really do. But I also feel as though, how can I phrase this? I actually think if you look at the work that's being done right now by some of the traditional outlets, the Wall Street Journal has done some really important reporting in the last 12 months. And then what exists in other places, including some of the Substacks where you guys got people like Charlie Sykes and Paul Krugman turning up there, and Jennifer Rubin. I think the media actually does do a halfway decent job. I actually, and I don't want to finger point away from problems with journalism, because there are problems with journalism. But, for example, the Wall Street Journal reported this week, based on one analysis plus that has now been backed up by multiple other analyses, that Americans are bearing 96% of the burden of the Trump tariffs. In other words, the Trump tariffs have not, in fact, brought money into this country from other sources as much as they have created a chain reaction in which Americans, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out and others have since pointed out, are bearing by far the brunt of the tariffs. Now, I've seen that reported, 5 or 6 places, and not obscure places, starting with the Wall Street Journal. At a certain point, it becomes the job of the Democratic Party to pick that up and make it into more news. You can only report something like that once or twice if you're in the news business, unless it turns into a conversation. So, and I don't think the Democrats are very good at politics right now. So I don't mean to kick the can over to them, but I'm doing it anyway. So there. All right. The number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. And let's go to James in Torrington, and then we'll go to Pamela who has very strong feelings in Danbury. Hi, James.
Hello. Hello?
Hi. Hello.
Can you hear-
Yes, I can hear you. Ahoy. Ahoy. That's what.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was calling to say that this business about acquiring, what was it now?
Greenland? Greenland by
Greenland.
Yeah.
It's just about the business about protecting from China and Russia is just an excuse. He's just obsessive compulsive about acquiring real estate, which goes back to his professional life. This is why he wants Greenland. This is why he wants Canada. This is why he wants to take back Panama.
Well, I sort of agree with you, and let me just sort of put a little bow on it and say one of the things. So we have a show that's going to be airing tomorrow about Greenland. It's about the history of Greenland, and it's about the president of Greenland, and I really hope people stay to the end. There's a very moving third and final segment in it. But apropos of that show, as I really began to look at the whole lay of the land, so to speak, it seemed as though most of the things that Trump seems to be talking about, to the extent that he's coherent and understandable at all in terms of his purpose in wanting Greenland, most of those things are probably possible under an agreement signed by the U.S., among other parties, in 1951. And that if they just sort of asked if we just sort of asked nicely, way back before all the saber rattling, and if we just said, here's some stuff we think we need to do here, we probably could have had most of what we wanted. But see, I think the caller is correct that he wants to get things, he wants to acquire things to the extent that he has any kind of rationale for what he's doing. He wants certain things, and he doesn't want to just work out an agreement to use parts of Greenland. He wants Greenland. I think Stephen Marsh, the Canadian writer, also is correct in just saying there's no such thing as Trumpism. There isn't a coherent doctrine that's either philosophical or scientific or rhetorical that you could sort of say, okay, yeah, here are the fundamental tenets. You could sort of identify some characteristics of Trumpism, but not as a strategy. And Marsh has written that he just likes to do stuff, and he likes to cause a lot of trouble. He likes to call a lot of attention to himself. And so it's why, we spend 1 week talking about essentially the paramilitary occupation of Minneapolis, which is still going on, but now we have to spend this week talking about Greenland because mostly what he likes to do is kind of move the focus around so that he's always doing something fresh and exciting and quite frequently appalling. All right, let's go to some more phone calls. The number 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Here is Pamela, who has strong feelings in Danbury. Hi.
How you doing today, Collins? I'm wondering, is the United States in the next 3 years is going to continue to be the United States, or is it going to be state to state? When you hear things in America or the Minneapolis governor saying that what's going on in his state, is it going to be state to state? You heard the Supreme Court stating that they're allowing ICE to go to different states instead of other states. I'm just wondering if in the next 3 years, if it's going to be state to state instead of the United States of America.
I think you will see a lot of that, and you will see states trying to carve out their individual destinies and their individual relationships with the power of Washington. You're seeing that right now. For example, the Washington and the Trump White House requested a whole bunch of data, election-related data, and some states are just saying, no, we're not giving you that stuff. You can't have it. And I think a lot of these things will get explored in the courts. And I also think it's incumbent, I've said this before, it's incumbent on states to ask themselves, anybody running for governor right now, including a sitting governor, not like Ned Lamont, should be saying, okay, how much could I build up capacity in the state, through the state government, to address some of the things that are being taken away? I mean, the first thing that happened in 2025 wasn't all the stuff that we're talking about now. It was DOGE, and it was the elimination of all kinds of services, or the if not the elimination of it, the catastrophic damage to institutions of government that provide important services. And some of those services are not replaceable at the state level, but some of them are. And I think the state governor, the gubernatorial elections and maybe legislative elections that are coming this year should very much be about that, at least in states where that's a palatable thing to talk about. It's certainly a palatable thing to talk about here. All right, we will. I mean, I could get specific, but I don't think anybody cares. Anyway, let's move on to Cynthia. Cynthia in beautiful Glastonbury. Hi.
Hi, Colin. I enjoy your show. I just wanted to add to the discussion and broaden it as far as what we're truly missing with what's going on now. I actually just got an email from a friend in Denmark today. My previous career involved dealing with a lot of other people in other countries, and so I have a lot of close friends all over Europe, Japan, etc., and they are not taking jobs. They are not coming to the U.S. And one told me today with some consulting work that he did not feel comfortable coming into the U.S. And so we have these brilliant folks who can bring money to our country, who can bring expertise that companies need them, and they don't want to come into our country. Yesterday, I was on a webinar where they're discussing even investors with pharmaceuticals being fearful of what's going on with the FDA, where they said 20% of the workforce is now gone. A lot of the historical knowledge is gone. So there's a lot happening, and our country is losing a lot with the Trump administration and their policies. So
yeah, there's a big brain drain, and as the Trump administration started to cut grants to colleges and universities, as it began to defenestrate things like the National Science Foundation, and other countries right away started trying to poach. They started saying, "Come here, we will fund your research. We will give you a free hand academically. We will not interfere." And so we've lost smart people that way. We lost smart people in the way that Ruth is talking about as well. What amazes me, I'm not that amazed that the Republicans have just rolled over and showed their bellies to Trump. And I'm not that amazed that the Democrats, at least to the extent that they're led by Schumer and Jeffries, haven't really been a terribly effective opposition. I'm not that surprised by that either. What I'm surprised by is the business community. Because, you think back in the first Trump administration, there was, I can't remember whether it was in the Michael Wolff thing or something else, this whole idea that, guys like Kelly and Timmerman and stuff like that, they were talking about, like, should we tackle him? Should we be prepared to, like, tackle him if we think he's about to blow up the world or really hurt either the United States or the whole planet? What should we do if he starts acting really crazy? And I'm just amazed that businesses, for all of the reasons that you've just outlined, but also it's very hard to conduct international trade when you, from day to day, from week to week, the tariff numbers shift around. It's difficult also, given the number of countries that have been banned from the United States entirely, like they can't come and pick up something that they bought. I just think that the impact on all of this, and if we start to see real strong retaliatory tariffs over the Greenland mess, this is really going to be a problem. And I'm astonished that all of the people that we assume have a lot of power, the people at the highest reaches of the business world, have not just come to him and said, "You're killing us. You've got to stop," or gone around him and said, "Why are we not invoking the 25th Amendment right now?" So yeah. Thanks for your call, and I agree, and all that stuff. Okay, so we've got Ruth and we've got Raul. Maybe we should take a break first. Gather ourselves, and I shall return.
Our hearts are broken and our lives are empty. You were the world's first love. Everything
thought it all through. But I'm not gonna spend the rest of my life sucking up to you. I got my plan, gonna see where it goes. And I bet you by golly, it'll get me on my toes. I feel my way till I come to a bend. It's a slide, I'll tell you, never comes to the end. It's your friend. At the wheel of my very own ride.
Kurt. You know, Kurt, you're very high maintenance. That's my feeling. But you're worth it. He's still just one of the great singers. All right, so here's the plan. We have no plan. Ask or Tell Me Anything is the name of the episode. That means that you can call 888-720-9677, better known as 888-720-WNPR, and you can bring up anything you want. Now, a lot of people today are, I was not surprised to find out that a lot of people are very freaked out and concerned about what's been happening in this country over the last 2-3 weeks, or the last year or two. But it doesn't have to be about that. You are literally allowed to call up about anything you want. But this is what people want to talk about, so we'll do that. 888-720-WNPR, 888-720-9677. Let's go to Raul here in Berlin. Raul, you have the floor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Oh, I can't complain.
Almost afraid to put this out there, but everywhere that I've scoured and listened to, nobody has said this. I don't think that we can go through 3 more years of this. And that saying, you got to talk to people on their level. Trump got most famous by firing people. He's got to be fired. He's got to be fired. And I think coming from Connecticut, we drive around with these license plates, the Constitution state, in defense of the Constitution. I'm sure people from 49 other states will agree. Let's all go to D.C., January 6th style as patriots, and just demand that we review his performance for the past year, just bring the facts to light, call Senator Murphy, have him convene, the Senate, the House. This is just going backwards. I mean, I've been going through all these history shows on TV. I cut the cable a long time ago. So, yeah, John Oliver, Jon Stewart, they're pretty much my source for the daily news. But you draw direct references to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, to ICE going around neighborhoods. We see what's happening, and nobody's saying other than, oh, well, look what he's doing. He's got to be fired.
Yeah, well, so just to back up a little bit, I don't think we want to say January 6th style.
Patriots in defense of what you believe. It's been
Patriots in defense of what you believe at the level of speech and demonstration. Yes, I mean we don't want to be
without the violence. No, I just mean just convene and push forward the idea that he can't. I mean, knocking down the East Wing. That's the thing. As a real estate person, he's looking at things from that vantage point, obviously transactional, but just this whole Greenland thing, this is just, it's too much. I
mean, look, he has been twice impeached. They know right now that they don't have the numbers if they were to try it again. I think this next round of elections hopefully can be conducted freely and fairly without tampering. And if that's the case, we'll come out of 26 with a different composition in the House. I would assume a pretty substantial gain of seats in the House. Not so clear in the Senate. You would have to, gain almost an unimaginable number of seats in the Senate in order to be able to conduct a successful impeachment and conviction. There's the 25th Amendment sitting around right now, although that I don't think is as usable as people think it is. We're going to have to learn how to survive, and we're going to have to learn how to oppose meaningfully things that happen with a guy who has now, I mean, there really aren't too many of the tenets or the trappings of autocracy that he has just seized and put on. He is clearly in that the interview that he gave a few days ago where he said he was not constrained by anything except his own sense of morality. That just told you a lot. Now, I also think that he's losing his marbles. I mean, I think he is not well, and it should not be in charge of much of anything, certainly not a superpower. But until there's a consensus about that, opposition will have to come in different kinds of ways. I think the other thing that's very clear from the polling, and if you're wondering sort of what kinds of things if you're going to want to change your news diet the way we were talking about, I would make sure that something like G. Elliott Morris's newsletter, Strength in Numbers, which is probably the best distillation of polling right now that's available, comes out of that whole 538 background. But it's just very clear he has lost the people, and the number of people who don't support the behavior of ICE and the deployment of ICE right now, it's just rising all the time, and it's mostly Democrats and independents, but it's losing support in the Republican Party. Same thing with annexation of, or whatever we're going to call it, of Greenland, not supported by the public at all. His approval ratings are deeply underwater. Now, the problem with all that is the more unpopular he becomes, probably the more reckless he will become, because he will know that it'll be harder to govern through consent. And since he plans to govern, that is almost too polite or highfalutin a term for what he's doing right now. But since he intends to control the American narrative as much as he possibly can. If he can't do it through consent, he'll do it through force. So in some ways, I get more nervous when he gets more unpopular. Anyway, let's go to Ruth, and we've got Kathy calling in too. We got you calling in if you call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Ruth, you have the floor.
Why, thank you. Good afternoon, Colin. I am going to suggest that I think Trump's motivation for almost everything he does is in his devotion to Putin and his hopes maybe that he can build in Russia. Everything. And the fact that I don't think he plans on leaving the White House. So he doesn't really care what the polls are. And he's got all of the Senate and the Congress Republicans so fearful that they'll be, what's the word I'm looking for, where they put up somebody to run against them. Anyway, that they just aren't doing what they should be doing, because he is not governing the whole United States of America anyway. He's only caring about the Republicans. We have a Democratic woman who should be sworn in, but they keep giving the House weeks off so that they won't be there to swear her in, because they know that vote would count. But I mean, everything that you're saying and other people, and actually, I do believe tens of thousands of people are protesting all over the country in red states and blue states and red counties, and because they're just so sickened by what these people, these masked murderers, these supposed ICE people, I mean, how dare they have there's no due process when they go and snatch someone and treat them just the way we never thought that citizens would be treated in the United States of America. I had said to Robin, who's so fabulous, that I'm 85 years old, and so I've been around a long time, love this country, and never did I think that we would go through what citizens of Germany went through in the 30s. And I can remember thinking in my own mind, how did they let this happen? How did they let him come to such power and do what he did? And here, and you mentioned like the financial people, how they could possibly.
He's breaking their backs. I mean, some of them obviously will do better than others. But yeah, no, he's breaking their backs. I'm amazed that, that that they haven't stampeded in there and used whatever I've always assumed that they had some kind of soft or maybe not so soft power to affect change and to some kind of institutional power to sort of say, well, no, you can't do that because we control so much of the nation's resources and we won't put up with it. That is apparently not the case, or they're not as bothered by him as I think they should be. Anyway, we need to move on, and we're going to go to Kathy and Avon right now. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. I'm 71, and this is the very first time I've ever called into a radio show. I just want to say I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but did you ever think about the people behind Trump? Trump runs the Look Over Here. Mm-hmm. Project 2025 is coming in, and the people like Peter Thiel. Perhaps he's written things about CEO kings, and I'm thinking they're pushing him. They want a zone that's tax-free and pretty free for what they want to do. I'm just positing that. And the other thing is the U.S. Constitution has Article 2, Section 4, which just doesn't impeach the president, takes out the administration, and that's more of what we need to do. And that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Well, thanks, Kathy. So you were saying, I think the point she's making is that might be a reason to want Greenland is to have it be this kind of place where, I don't know, I feel like the Peter Thiels of this world, I think they've already figured out how to shelter. I mean, the people, the super rich of this country have already figured out how to beat the tax code and how to shelter their money from taxes and how to park it overseas. I can't imagine that we need to obtain Greenland just so that they could do more of that. I think they're fine. I don't think they have a lot of major complaints. I could be wrong. But there's probably something else that Peter Thiel, because he thinks the Antichrist is coming, right? So maybe he needs a bunker somewhere. They got tunnels. They have tunnels in Greenland from one of the post-war projects there. So maybe he wants the tunnels. All right. So our number, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. I do encourage you to listen to our show about Greenland tomorrow. I think we will tell you things that you had not known. Okay, so let's go over to Todd. Todd on Long Island. Hi, Todd.
Hi, Colin. I'm actually.
Todd, where are you? What happened?
Oh,
there you are.
But yeah. So, but I am originally from Connecticut. I actually had my only question is I had listened to the Gilmore Girls podcast recently, and yes. I know a lot of people that were involved with your show were involved with that. And I was just wondering if you actually watched sort of Gilmore Girls, and if you kind of like the show or what you think about it.
Well, let me just say that. Generation Gilmore Girls, which should have been called Generation Gilmore, is a product of the Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions. Yeah. So I really regard it as one of the real landmarks in the history of podcasting. I mean, I think we got this, and it's really kind of a roadmap for future activities. And you have no idea how powerful Lily Tyson is. I have to be so careful. It's one thing, let me put it another way. It's one thing to diss the president and suggest that the president is out of his mind, and needs to be locked in a rubber room somewhere before he hurts people. That's one thing, and I'm pretty comfortable doing that. I'm not afraid of the president, but if you think I'm going to say a negative word about anything that is produced by LTQEP, Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions, although I don't love everything they do, but if you think I'm going to do that, you have misjudged me. You have misunderestimated me, as President Bush would say. All right, so we got time for one more call, then we'll take a break, and then we'll have lots of time on the other end of the break for more calls. So please call in at 888-720-9677. It was nice to get a call. I mean, I know we're all just kind of consumed in a very unpleasant way with all of the activities of the Mad King. But it was nice to get a call that wasn't about the Mad King. All right, so we'll go to Grace, and then we'll take a little break, but you can call 888-720-9677. Get yourself, in the queue, as it were, 888-720-WNPR. And let's try Grace. Hi, Grace.
Hi. So back to the monks that we talked about a couple of weeks ago that are walking for peace. Mm-hmm. So I've been following them on Facebook, and there's huge crowds. They're walking in red states, and they seem to be multiracial. I feel like something is going on, and they're not getting any national media coverage, or very little. And I was saying to a friend of mine recently how I was getting comfort from watching this because I'm so upset about everything else that's going on with, the things you're talking about earlier. And she said to me, well, what good is it? What good are they going to accomplish just doing that, walking? And my feeling is they're bringing hope. Mm-hmm. And I just want to know if you agree with that.
I think you're right, and I think that
non-political. They're just doing it for peace.
I think you just listen to the way that people are talking today. People need hope. People need something that they can look to, even if it's pretty abstract, even if it's not necessarily clear at the level of mechanics, how a group of Tibetan monks could possibly affect change or change the course that we seem to be on right now as a nation and a world. Just the idea that people are out there doing that, and that does create hope. That does suggest another way of looking at or thinking about this situation. And that's not a small thing. That's a big thing. So thanks for calling and making that point. All right, we'll take a quick break here. We'll come back. We'll talk to Chris. We'll talk to other people who call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR.
This year was not such a good one. This year I'm right out of luck. I'm headed down on the down slope. I can't figure out how to get it unstuck. Maybe a night in a cafe, out on the patio. I'll be the girl in the corner. It's only me and my album videos. A buzz on the telephone. The name is Michael. Old friend, hello. Can it be him from so long ago? Michael was always the go-to. All class and all panache. The best, no stress. He can give you the bad news and still make you laugh. Michael, will you come and see me? Will you be the medicine? Remember when you were my lifeline, when we were just waiting for life to begin. He's here for only.
And the banjo on that is being played by Steve Martin. All right, time to say some thank yous, starting with Dylan Reyes, the maestro, our technical producer, Robin Doyen-Aiken, who's our wonderful boss and also the wonderful person who's answering the phone right now for us, is also being thanked here. And then you might have heard me mention Lily Tyson, the ruthless head of Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube right now, all 6 of you who are watching on YouTube right now, which you can do by going to the Connecticut Public channel of YouTube, if you can do that, you can see this mug. This is the LTQEP mug. And you know how typically, especially if you're watching or listening to public broadcasting, you hear about merch and then they tell you how much it would cost you, how much your minimum donation to get this merchandise. That's not the way this mug works. You can't have this mug. There is no amount of money. Well, there probably isn't an amount of money. I take that back. At the moment, there is no understanding of how you could possibly obtain one of these. There's only, I think, either 7 or 8 of them anyway. I mean, if you're watching on TV, it's kind of handsome. Kind of a little St. Patrick's thing going on with the color, too. And I just wanted you to know that. There's a mug you can't have, all right? This is public broadcasting. We have a mug that we are not going to let you have. Because that's a little, it's like Trump. You just got to keep changing it up all the time. All right, so we're going to go to the phones right now, and we will talk to Derek in Cheshire first. Derek, you have the floor.
Hi, Colin. I appreciate your show.
Well, thank you.
Listening to you for several years.
Well, thank you.
Great work.
Thanks.
I'm optimistic about the future, and I'm hoping that things change soon, and we don't have to wait 3 years. Do you see any forthcoming of that, or any time soon, or maybe somebody will make a stand and kind of like do something in Congress where, hey, this isn't correct, and maybe I don't know, instead of waiting for the blue wave this fall, but is there any sort of action that can be done?
I don't think there's a magic wand. I mean, I wish there was. I don't think there's a magic wand. I think change will be gradual. It's not what people want to hear. They want to hear the opposite. They want to hear that there's going to be an end to this madness and that it's going to be fairly soon before more damage is done. And the damage being done is going to take decades to fix. Some of the stuff that we talked about earlier in the show, just the eviscerating of stuff like the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health. We've stopped funding cancer research. What's happened right now with any measure that any previous administration tried to enact to limit the harm of climate change has been flung out the window. In fact, here's a little story that I'm sorry, this is not something that's going to give you hope, and I know you want hope, but I wish I could give you more hope. The change will be gradual. Ideally, if the elections can be conducted in a free and fair way, there will be change in the fall. I don't think that there's a magical way of dealing with this before that. But because there's so much stuff, like one of the reasons we're not covering Tibetan monks walking for peace is there's so much stuff. So in the world of regulation, and specifically here I'm talking about the EPA, one of the things that they do are cost benefit analyses of possible regulations. So because regulations that cost somebody money sometimes, typically cost private enterprise money, are balanced against the benefit from them. And in order to do that, somewhat alarmingly, historically, for decades and decades and decades, there's been an official federal valuation of human life. So that if you look at a proposed regulation and you think, oh, well, it would cost $1 billion and it would save 5 lives, but we only value human life at 150,000 or something, then maybe it's not worth doing, or maybe it is worth doing. And what has happened very quietly is, that value of the human life hasn't been stable. It's like everything else; it fluctuates across markets, but. The EPA has now, for the first time in decades, decided just not to do that. And I think the reason they're not doing it is because they don't want to have that conversation at all. Like, how many lives would we save if we did this, as against the cost of doing this, the cost to anybody of doing this. They just want to do stuff and not have to think about that. But I found it's always been a little bit ominous that there was a numerical value of human life. But I think it's even more ominous that it just decided to stop doing that. I don't know why I'm laughing. All right, let's go to William. We have other people calling in here, 888-720-9677. Time is running short, however. Hi, William.
Hi. Yes, I will be quick. One of the most disturbing stories I heard was on NPR this morning about Trump's, I think it's an outgrowth of the Gaza monitoring plan, that he is wants to do something like his own United Nations thing, where people are going to pay $1 billion to get into it.
But I think it's like you get 3 years. Don't you get 3 years free, and then you have to come up with $1 billion? I don't think it's a $1 billion buy-in. I think it's like those Columbia Records deals where you get like seven free albums, and then they start charging you. Anyway, go ahead.
It's very disturbing. I mean, to think that somebody and part of the thing is that he would be the boss of it for life, And I'm thinking in his little mind, he's saying, "Well, if I can't be president, I can be king of the world if this goes the way I want it to." And God forbid anything like this should ever come together.
I mean, thanks for bringing this up, William. And one thing that I keep meaning to mention, and one thing that I'm surprised isn't being explored more through the courts, Article 6 of the Constitution says that any treaty to which we are party, to which we are signatory, is has the same status of the law of the land. So, for example, what we did in Venezuela, if indeed we can agree that it's a violation of the UN Charter, that's illegal because the charter that we signed is, according to Article 6 of the Constitution, the law of the land. Now, it does seem as though breaking laws isn't what it used to be. I mean, particularly if you're president, and particularly with the Supreme Court who said, well, yeah, go ahead, break some laws. We'll talk about it. But, I mean, I'm sort of amazed that there aren't. The courts are probably clogged with so many different parties seeking injunctive relief in so many different ways. But this seems to have kind of gone by. I mean, you don't really have a choice about whether you honor our treaties. Anyway. All right. Well, let me just take all of these calls look good, but let's start with Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. You have the floor right now.
Hi. Thank you so much. I called and I have extra nervousness because what I'm thinking is I loved all the issues that everyone talked about. They're so important. The Article 6 thing you said is important. But as a woman, I'm just in fear for my life and safety because all of us saw somebody murder a white woman in her car after she dropped off her children and murder her in cold blood. Everyone I've heard dissect what happened and the videos and the information said that if shot 1 could in any way be justified, that shot 2 and 3 are murder. Mm-hmm. So there's someone on the loose who feels like they can assassinate women and then say that she's an FB after they do it. He's on the loose, and our government has not done one thing to detain him, criticize him. He should be in pretrial detention, or he should be being monitored so that we can know what state he is in. This man that did basically a hate crime, but definitely murder on bullets 2 and 3. And I just don't know how that's not being addressed more, and people just don't stop and slow down and do it. Now, I know that a lot of people who are immigrants were killed, and I was helping them, and I care so much about all of them. But I'm talking about for just awareness and understanding. How could every American not know that we are not safe?
Yep. We're gonna have to stop there. We're out of time. I mean, I don't disagree with much of anything that you just said. But I mean, to do that, there has to be a mechanism to do it. It doesn't exist at the federal level. They're not going to do anything. So it has to happen at the state level. And of course, right now they're trying to interfere with the ability of the state to investigate and prosecute a crime like that. Anyway, we have to go. Thanks for calling in today, and thanks for listening.
To all my sisters in the struggle, keep believing, sister, till the victory is won. Till that day. Till that day comes. Let us march on to victory.